WNST, Taos, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are taking the Maryland Crab Cake Tour out on the road. It's all presented by the Maryland Lottery in conjunction with our friends at Goodwill Industries and Window Nation. We will be at Luna del Sea on June 1st. That's Wednesday. Really looking forward to getting down here in Tony's story. I've known Tony a long time down there. He's on Pratt Street, right in front of Oriole Park at Camden Yards, where this guy will be seeing Adley Rutschman stroke the baseball from time to time. And we call this the Recon. Each week we get together, and, you know, it was a little bit of a gripe session from the old Dan Roderick's days, and sometimes we comment on things. Don, this has been a really dark thing here the last couple of weeks because we've had 222, 228. I've lost count of the number. School shootings, school incidents with guns this year in this country. And I'm just going to let you go because, like, you have been a first responder. You have been a teacher in these situations. And I just want to give you the floor the way you gave me the floor on abortion 2 weeks ago, being a teenage parent.
Oh, boy, where to start, right? Nestor, I would give anything to be able to come on here today and talk about Adley Rutschman's first 4 or 5 days in the big leagues. I think it's one of the most exciting developments in Baltimore sport in a long time. I'd like to come on
since
here.
Lamar held out of camp this week, too.
I was just going to say, I'd like to have the opportunity for you and I to talk about whether or not it matters that Lamar wasn't at camp. But unfortunately, those things seem insignificant given what is happening in this country. I mean, just a week ago, you and I were doing the Recon, talking about a sick individual walking into a grocery store in Buffalo, New York. White supremacists, just killing people, just indiscriminately shooting and killing people. You and I came on, as we always do, just aghast that this is the United States of America.
Well, the aghast part is, you know, it's going to happen again. And you just got to wonder whether it's going to be the yoga studio I'm in, or the place you are, or the supermarket you're in, or the school you're in, or the concert you're at, or whatever this is. We are not safe from each other if we are going to give automatic war weaponry to any citizen that desires it, that can get the cash over the table.
We're at a point, the reality of it is numbing, right? It's numbing. A couple of personal.
Well, the reality that you can live in Australia or other sane places, and this just isn't it's not a part of the vernacular, in the same way that in 1981, when I met you, 1982, at Dundalk High School, could someone have brought a gun in? Yes. Might they have brought a gun in? Maybe. They did in Perry Hall, but what kind of gun that would have been? Awful. There would have been awful carnage. There would have been a few people that died. This is not the same as the kind of weaponry the N.R.A. and the G.O.P. and Vladimir Putin and the money behind all of this has begat for these people who vote for politicians who put automatic weapons in the hands of all of their family members on their Christmas card. Well, I mean, it's incomprehensible to me that this could be an attractive lifestyle for anyone in this country, to think that worshiping guns and violence and glorifying this would somehow be a good idea for all of us, that would serve all of us.
So much to unpack. Think about what just happened, Nestor. An 18-year-old. Now let's think about that for a minute.
How many angry 18-year-old white boys have you met in your life?
Pardon me?
How many angry 18-year-old white young men have you met in your life? We got one right here. You knew me when I was 18. No. We were all angry when we were 18.
Well,
right?
Let's look at some facts. An 18-year-old cannot walk in to the liquor store down the street and buy a case of beer. An 18-year-old cannot rent a car in most car rental agencies in the United States. This 18-year-old, several days after his 18th birthday, walked into a store and purchased 2 assault weapons, weapons of war. Let's not make any distinction.
They're not there to hunt rabbit.
And any of you who are out there listening want to email Nestor and me and rant that we don't understand that there are automatic. Stop. Just stop. Do me a favor. I tell you what. Just
take your gaslighting elsewhere.
Unsubscribe. Unsubscribe. Don't follow us. We don't have any need for that. We know what automatic weapons are. We can see them. This young man bought 2 automatic weapons. And more importantly, Nestor, I think it was 400 rounds of ammunition. 400 rounds of ammunition.
Well, the cops, we're learning now the cops wouldn't go in because the cops knew they would die. Right. Like literally, the cops knew that they had no chance against this kid with a weapon. They knew they would die. It's one thing to say, cops, go be heroic when you think you can be a hero. You know, those people that went running into the building to save people in New York thought they were going to get out, right? Well, I mean, literally, being a hero is about running into bullets. That's not being a hero. That's committing suicide. So these cops didn't go in. So we're now giving weapons to rando citizens, you know, literally, whoever wants one, and as many rounds of ammunition as they want to bunker themselves wherever they want and murder at will, because we don't have cops that can come in and even bring the situation to order, because one person has more weaponry than the SWAT team does.
I've had police officers for years now tell me that they are totally outmanned. And now, obviously, the new toy of choice is body armor.
Why would the Texas state troopers want citizens to have automatic weapons? Why would law enforcement people want to show up at the scene of a crime where the bad guy, whoever that is, the nut, the mental health, the poor military person who's been dealing with this for 20 years in Iraq or Afghanistan, and they've got a military weapon and an unlimited amount of artillery. What police officer, what politician, what citizen should want this?
Well, there are. All right, let's answer that. Let's take a look at that.
There's my Steve Kerr for the week.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Well, Steve Kerr is one of our new heroes, obviously, but there are many Steve Kerrs. You know, my daughter just sent me a note that they're organizing another March for Our Lives in Washington in June. I will be there. Whatever I have to clear, I don't know what difference it will make, but I will stand up, hopefully, with millions of other Americans saying enough is enough. Now, listen, anyone who follows me on social media, and I've gotten some fairly negative reaction to some of my recent posts, I have concluded that and we have some good friends. You and I have good friends who are Republican elected officials, but unfortunately,
I saw several of them at the Preakness the other day. I have Barry Glassman.
I have concluded that the only way to turn this thing around is for voters to simply vote against every single Republican official, from dog catcher to school board to county council to General Assembly, all the way up through the presidency. Make a commitment as a nation to vote against every single Republican official until they stop kneeling at the altar of the N.R.A. I mean, Nestor, the fact
it's the constituency. This is popular. This gets Ted Cruz elected. That performative. This gets Abbott elected. I mean, even Beto O'Rourke coming in, that's going to get Republicans who shine their weapons and treat them like they're some sort of phallic item, that they're going to vote for Ted Cruz and not in that state, because their minds, the marketing that the NRA, and Justice Berger's quote's been going around this week, right? Did you see that?
Let me just read that. Let's take a moment. Let's do a little social studies class here. Conservative,
Professor
Republican,
Moeller.
Conservative Republican Chief Justice Warren Berger, appointed, I believe, by Eisenhower. Yeah, I'm pretty sure appointed by. I should know that history, but for some reason I'm having a brain cramp. But let's listen to what this conservative Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said about the gun lobby's argument that somehow the Second Amendment applies to individual citizens. The Chief Justice said the gun lobby's interpretation of the Second Amendment is one of the greatest pieces of fraud, I repeat the word fraud, on the American people by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime. The real purpose of the Second Amendment was to ensure that state armies, the militia, would be maintained for the defense of the state. The very language of the Second Amendment refutes any argument that it was intended to guarantee every citizen an unfettered right to any kind of weapon he or she desires. Chief Justice Warren Berger. This is not, as Brian Frosch pointed out, this is not about constitutional mandates. This is not originalism. If you're an originalist, you know what the Second Amendment said, and it doesn't support Greg Abbott or Marco Rubio or the absolute worst human being on the face of the earth, Ted Cruz. They know
they're worse guys, man. I think about that every day when I go to tweet about him.
He's the worst. He's the worst human being on the planet. I almost hate to dignify him by using his name.
This guy down in Florida that's got him beat.
Remember what a United States senator one day said that if someone walked onto the Senate floor and all 100 senators were present and someone assassinated Ted Cruz. Now, again, we're not supporting assassinating Ted Cruz. Nestor and I are not violent people. But the senator said, if someone assassinated Ted Cruz, you would not be able to find one witness to the crime among the 100 senators. They despise Ted Cruz. But there is a Boston College. There is a Boston College professor by the name of Heather Cox Richardson. She has an incredible newsletter. I don't know how she does it, Nestor. It's called Letters from America. You can go on Heather Cox Richardson. Just go. It's free to subscribe. I know how hard it is to write meaningful, lengthy blogs. You know how hard it is. She literally writes one every night, and it appears in your inbox. It's one of the most thoughtful. If people read one thing every morning, I suggest they read Heather Cox Richardson, history professor, Boston College. She makes the argument today.
She get her on the show.
I will reach out.
There you go. There you go. All things are possible, Don Moeller.
I will reach out to her, even though we're going to cut back on my schedule a little bit so I can write some books and do some other things. I will reach out to her. But this is why I find her interesting, Nestor. She makes a point today that it was actually the demise of communism and the Soviet Union that had been the right's boogeyman forever that allowed them to refocus and turn their energy to ginning up the cultural and social issues that, as you pointed out, have the ability to energize a certain base of voters.
It's like you can tell any of these people that something's about freedom and they can put freedom to it. And and then it's all over with. Whether it's you're free to do anything except abort your fetus. You're free to do anything that we say you're free to do, but that's, we're free to carry guns, or well, you're not free to send your kid to school. Yeah, so the word freedom and how that's been bastardized through Reagan, Bush, and into this century, and how guns are equated with freedom, and religion is equated with freedom, which is an incredible thing, right? Like, you're going to believe my religion because I'm free. My God is the only God, but we're free. It's an insane philosophy for 30 to 35% of this country right now.
Nestor, you need to subscribe to the newsletter. Let me tell you how on target you are, which you often are. I mean, you have an ability to very often pick up on themes that are.
What we call it in Dundalk? We call it cutting through bullshit. Is what we call it.
There you go.
That's what it is. It's cutting through bullshit. Because I've been a reporter my whole life. I've been lied to by family members, people, employees. But I don't like being lied to. And you get a bullshit detector. And if you don't have it, you perish on this planet if you associate with the wrong people. And clearly there are a lot of people in Texas who've associated with this philosophy that the people in Australia don't subscribe to this because they're smarter.